So you got $1,000 saved up. You're looking to build a game PC. You're not too sure on what parts you need to buy. You're going to equal $1,000 and get you the best performance. That's what today's video is all about. We are going to be going through the PC port picker. I'm going to be picking out some components. I'm going to give you my recommendations for the best way to build your $1,000 game PC in today's video. There is timestamps in the description below. Certain part of the video you'd like to jump to, you're more than welcome to do so. Some other links down that may interest you. Don't forget to do all that fun YouTube stuff on your way down that description box. Without wasting a lot of your time, let's flip you over and we'll get into my recommendations and why I chose these components. Alright guys, and start off this build, we're going to take the Intel 4i5-12400F. If you've been around the channel, you may be a little bit surprised with my choice going with the Intel build on this one. But I actually did this build with the AMD and Intel, and for the equivalent, for right now, Intel is the best bang for the buck. Also, a lot of the benchmarks I've been seeing online, the Intel CPUs actually give you a little bit better performance than what AMD does. They're a little bit cheaper between the CPU and motherboard choices. I saved about $40 by going with Intel. So, Intel was the way I decided to go on this build. This is a 6-core 12-thread processor, which is great for gaming and even live streaming if you want to get into streaming your gameplay. You've been around the channel, you know I like my Gigabyte DS3H motherboards. They are a great little budget op. They hold up great. They got all the features that most people want, but not too much where people don't use the features of it. I think it's a great little motherboard. Use a lot of the DS3H motherboards as far as AMD goes. And Intel, I don't think it's going to be much of a difference. And this fits inside the budget and it has all the features that you actually need for a gaming PC. And as you can tell by looking at the screen, it is a DDR4 motherboard. While I went with DDR4, you can get about the same performance or better performance with DDR4 as you can with DDR5 right now. Also, you save a little bit more money by going with DDR4 because DDR5 is still hard to get and it's still pretty expensive yet. There really ain't much of a benefit going with DDR5 right now. Speaking of the RAM, I did go with a Silicon Power 16 gig, 2 8 gig sticks, running at 3200 megahertz with a cache legacy of 16. Intel ain't quite as dependent on RAM speed like AMD is, so you can actually save a little bit on the budget by going with a little bit slower kit for Intel than what you did with AMD. Even with that being said, even with Intel, you still want to get the 3200 megahertz speed, maybe 3600 megahertz speeds if you can fit it into your budget. This kit right here for $52 fit right into the budget, and 16 gigs is still plenty of RAM for most gaming. For the storage in this system, we have the Silicon Power 1TB NVMe drive. This is only a Gen 3 drive, not the Gen 4 drive. To stay within the budget, I went with the Gen 3 version of this drive. This is $75 a day of filming. 1 terabyte is plenty for most of your programs and quite a few games. I'd recommend having a smaller boot drive with the main programs, then adding your game library onto another hard drive or another SSD or something. That way, if you need to reinstall your Windows applications, you don't have to re-download all your games. But if you're a first-time builder, a lot of people just getting into gaming don't understand how to do that, how to have your client on one drive and reading from another drive. So I think this is a pretty good option, and it does fit into the budget. And the Gen 3 is going to be fast enough because once your game loads up off the hard drive, you really ain't very dependent on the drive speed. Just up to a few years ago, we had SATA drives that everybody was running off of. So I don't think you're going to notice that much of a difference besides maybe your load screen is a little bit longer on the Gen 3 over the Gen 4. And this one fits into the budget, so I thought this was a pretty good choice. As far as the video card goes, we have the Sapphire Nitro Plus Radeon RX 6600 XT 8 gig. The day of the filming, this card's going for about $400. This card is good for 1080p higher refresh rate gaming and some 1440p, depending on the titles you're playing, the resolution you want to play at. But for a $1,000 build, this card makes up anywhere from a third to half of the budget, which is about where you want to be with a gaming PC. I couldn't fit a 3060 or 3060 Ti into this build because them NVIDIA cards are just way overly priced at the time of the filming. So I did go with an AMD GPU for this. To power the whole system, we have the Supernova 650 watt PSU for the system. It's fully modular power supply. It fits into the budget and it's more than enough power that you need for this system, and possibly some upgrades in the future, depending on how powerful your PSU needs to be for the upcoming generations of graphics cards. And for the case, we have the Fractal Design Massified C Mini Black Micro ATX case. We did use a Micro ATX motherboard. I believe if you're going to go with the Micro ATX motherboard, you need to have a Micro ATX case. I think you ought to keep these two in the same same area. That way your motherboard don't look so small inside your case. You may want to go with a full tower case if you decide that if you think you may be upgrading your motherboard in the future into a full-size motherboard instead of a micro OTX case. This is a pretty good case. I've built in this case. You got plenty of airflow, and there ain't gonna be no problems keeping your components cool. And of course, for $1,000, you need a little bit of ARGB bling. That case does come with 2 fans, which would be plenty for today's system. But we had a little bit of extra room in the budget, so I did also add in these 3 ARGB fans. That way we can have some bling to the system. We got the UpPure 5-volt 3-pack 120mm PMW fans. Day of the filming, they run about $28 here on Amazon. I think it's just going to give you that bling that most people want with the ARGB. For a $1,000 system, you should be able to fit in a little bit of ARGB in there and make it more personalized to your taste. So here's how the parts list is looking. We have the CPU at $170. We have the Gigabyte B660 DS3H motherboard at $109. We have the Silicon Power memory, $49.97. We have the Silicon Power 1TB NVMe solid state drive at $73.98. We have the Sapphire Radeon RX 6600 XT coming in at $399.99. We have the Messapad C Mini Micro ATX case at $114.98. We have the Supernova 650 watt gold certified modular power supply for $59.99. And we have the 3-pack of UpPure fans coming in at $27.99. Brings the total up to $1,006.83. So that would be the parts I'd recommend for a $1,000 gaming PC build here in 2022. I think this gives you some of the best performance out there for the $1,000. And I did use all new components in this system. You could probably do better if you want to go on the used market and buy some other stuff. But also, right now the used market is pretty messed up. It's kind of hard to recommend that or be able to give you a solid price point on what you could buy for $1,000 on the used market. Because there's no guarantee you can get the same deals that I'd be able to get. So I did use all new components in this build. Let me know in the comments below if there's something you think I left out or how you would spend your $1,000 to build a gaming PC if you didn't like the components that I chose for this build. Don't forget to go down and check that description box out. There's some links down there that may interest you. Don't forget to do all that fun YouTube stuff on your way down that description box. You all have a good day, and I'll see you in the next video or live stream.